Hey, this is Jonathan with JML Woodworks, and today I'm going to show you how I made a farmhouse table out of some scrap wood that I had in the shop. So I started off this project. I had a lot of 1x6s and 1x4s left from the headboard that I did for a buddy of mine. So you can see I just cut 4 of those, and then I had my little helper come and bring me some more wood. And then I started on the legs, cut them 23 and a quarter. I then ran over to the table saw and ripped them down to 2.5. And really that's most of the main parts to the table. So here you can see me doing a big glue up. My daughter is a wood enthusiast as well, so she just wanted to keep on talking about her project that she was doing in the floor, which was building blocks basically. So I stuck them all together, and then Adeline wanted to show you this dance. She's a great dancer. So I headed back to the table and kind of sorted how I wanted the top to look. Took measurements, making sure everything was going to be the same for me to use my pocket hole jig that my wife bought me for Christmas. This thing's really cool, really handy to have for attaching things like this. So then I put some glue on the edges and just put the pocket holes into the holes that I made with a pocket hole jig, obviously. So here's a look from the bottom, and then I went ahead and cut off the edges straight. And so then here's the sanding, and there's a ton of sanding. In any wood project that you do, you're gonna be there for a while. But luckily for you guys watching, I'm not gonna make you sit through all of it. So then it was time to turn my attention back to the legs. I brought out my planer, and that's the cool thing with having a plywood table is you can just screw down stuff and just make as many holes as you want because it's nothing fancy. So I ran the legs through one way and then ran them through the other way. And then I took it back to the saw and cut the edges off just a little bit just to get the glue off of the edges. Once all of those were cut, I took a quick measurement, making sure all of those were exactly the same, and went ahead and just started sanding on them as well. All 4 sides, again, taking a while. Back to the tabletop now, I took a quick measurement, making sure that my dimensions were still what I thought they were. And I had this piece left over, karate chopped it into 4 pieces, and I wasn't exactly sure how I wanted to do the skirt on this table, but I ended up deciding that I wanted to use my router and try something new. I've never tried this until this point, but I just made grooves for the wood to fit into. So you can see I did 2 sides and then marked which sides I needed, and so this is what it kind of ended up looking like.
Wow!
I went ahead and stained the top and then stained the skirt as well, and making sure everything's square. Got my speed square out, making sure the legs are straight. Started taking measurements on the skirt for the bottom so that I could make a shelf on the bottom, which ended up being a little more difficult than what it should have been because I'm a beginner, I guess. I've done quite a few things for people, but I never really know how it's going to go. But here I just wanted to get an idea on what I wanted to do for the bottom shelf. I had a cool idea in my head on a design, so I just laid it out on the floor, making sure that it still looked cool, halfway brought to life, and then the sanding begins, and then the staining, and back and forth, back and forth. And then here I'm actually attaching the skirt for the top. So far it's just been sitting in the grooves, but just putting a little bit of wood glue and tapping it in, making sure everything sits snug, and just doing that for all 4 legs. I made sure to just take my time, make sure everything gets enough glue and everything ends up square in this whole process. This is really sped up. This is 10 times the speed actually. And you can see I'm just really making sure everything's down flat. Wipe off the excess glue every single time. Now we move into the finishing process of the table. This is where you start feeling like you're getting close to done, but the truth is you're not. Start out on the bottom of the table, that way when I flip it over, the bottom will be the one that's got any bad spots or just any excess polyurethane. I'm just using Minwax, regular stuff. You can get it at just about any store, really, Walmart or Lowe's or whatever, but it really brings it to life. I like using oil polyurethane just because it's a little tougher than water-based. Water-based will dry quickly, but the oil I've seen from the things I've done, it just looks better, it finishes smoother, and it's just a little tougher. And this is the part that a lot of people don't understand, why if you get something handmade, it takes a lot of time. There's lots of stuff on Amazon that you can order for a quarter of the price of what I can make you something. But the truth is, it's going to be made out of particle board. It gets touched by water, it's going to fall apart. And so all of this, just putting polyurethane on all of these parts, it it really takes a lot of time. And I'll give people prices, and they think it's kind of outrageous. Where really, I'm just charging uh, a, a minimal amount, honestly. I just try to charge enough to where it's worth my time to be down in the shop. I work a normal job, and then I do this in the evenings, sometimes till midnight, and then on the weekends. So honestly, I know that I'm not overpriced. But here I just got 600 grit sandpaper once the polyurethane was dry, and just going over everything. And again, this is the part a lot of people just don't understand. This is 10 times the speed. It takes a long time just to sand everything and then to second coat it. You put the second coat, and that's really what seals the deal as far as the toughness and the protection on your surfaces. Uh, Keeps the water from messing with the wood and from those circle stains that you get on furniture a lot of times. Poly won't completely do that. Use your coasters. We have a ton of coasters. I get on to my wife and kids all the time. You gotta use a coaster. So now you're probably starting to catch on when I do the top, get it going, and then I go back to the legs and the bottom, and then I go back to the top, and then back to the bottom. That way, something can be happening all the time. I don't like sitting still in the shop just waiting for stuff to happen. So here I just made some marks for where my bottom skirt needed to go, and I drilled pocket holes into the wood, and here I'm just using my lines, going off of those to where I need to be. And once that was where I thought it needed to be, I took some measurements, and it wasn't quite right on this one side, so got it right, made sure it was square, and there you go. So now we flip the table over, and then we flip the table back over. I realized that in the middle, I didn't really have anything to attach to, and all of the boards are going to be running across this, so it's just something extra to go off of. So I did the same thing, pocket holes on it. And if you don't have pocket holes, you can just use finished nails, just shoot them through the face. I just like not showing any nails or screws if I don't have to. And so the pocket hole is a really cool present from my wife. So I marked the edges. I made it easy. I didn't want to have to use my jigsaw and cut corners and everything off. So now just using that, attach them just using wood glue. Wood glue is kind of one of those things that you wouldn't think is too strong, but honestly, I've done a few tests, put wood glue on some stuff, and every time it always just breaks on the actual wood instead of the wood glue spot. So just make sure that it's flush on the inside. I didn't want any hang out on the bottom because that's when people hit their feet on it. And then I brought my design to life here. I had a 1x6 in the middle, and then it slowly gets smaller to the edges. Just put a few nails, 18 gauge nails in. You don't need a ton of them, just enough, and make sure that your spacing in between your boards is the same. And really the bottom was done at this point. And here I needed something to attach the tabletop to while the glue dried. Uh, so I guess you could call these just nailers, really. And same process, just glue on one side and then shoot it on. You just need 1 or 2 nails in it. And now I'm just taking measurements, making sure that I have the same amount of overhang everywhere, and marking that, because once I have glue on the bottom, I won't be able to measure and stuff without getting glue everywhere. And here I got right in front of the camera, and then the camera wasn't really where I thought it was. I'm completely new to this, so you'll have to forgive me. But I shot the nailers, and then I shot through the middle, and then I just clamped it up. Let that sit, and now the glamour shots. And of course, you can always just do what most people do with their scrap wood, since you probably can't make anything out of it anyways.